The factory exists for a reason most people never think about. Not for efficiency, not for speed, but for the moment when everything else begins to fail. Modern life depends on systems that are expected to work without hesitation, power that arrives instantly, networks that never pause, emergency infrastructure that responds before fear has time to spread. These expectations feel natural because they are rarely questioned, but they are not guaranteed. They are engineered. What stands here is not built to impress, it is built to endure. Every structure is heavier than necessary, every pathway is duplicated, every component assumes something else will eventually go wrong. This place is not optimized for convenience, it is optimized for survival. Scale matters here, not for ambition, but for margin. Margins against collapse, against overload, against uncertainty. Nothing is left thin or minimal. Steel is layered, systems are spaced apart. Independent paths run side by side without touching, because failure does not announce itself politely, it spreads. Human presence is small by design, not because people are unimportant, but because reaction time is unreliable. The systems do not wait for decisions. They do not ask for permission. They are built to hold their ground long before anyone notices a problem. Everything operates calmly, not because nothing is happening, but because everything already has a response prepared. Control exists before stress arrives. Silence is not emptiness here. It is proof. From this core, responsibility moves outward. What happens here does not stay here. It feeds systems that cannot afford hesitation. Hospitals that never close, response networks that cannot stall, infrastructure that supports millions who will never know its name. The connection is seamless. There is no dramatic handoff, no visible boundary between origin and dependence. The factory does not power others in bursts, it sustains them continuously. Downstream systems do not operate independently, they borrow certainty from this place. Nothing celebrates when everything works. There are no signals of success, because success is the absence of interruption. Preparation happened long ago. Failure was already addressed before it had a chance to exist. This calm does not happen on its own. It is watched, constantly, quietly, not with panic, but with discipline. Data flows without spikes. Numbers move steadily. Indicators do not flash for attention. They shift subtly, early, long before thresholds are reached. The system corrects itself while humans observe patterns, not events. Intervention is rare because prevention is constant. Redundancy is not a backup plan here. It is the default state. Parallel systems operate together, not waiting on standby. They share load, verify one another, and remain ready without being called. Nothing is labeled secondary in practice. Everything assumes responsibility. Failure is not treated as a possibility. It is treated as an assumption already accounted for. Protection does not sleep behind a switch. It runs live, synchronized, prepared to absorb collapse instantly. No human decision is required when things go wrong. That choice was removed long ago. This place exists for moments that may never come, and if those moments never arrive, the system has succeeded. But reliability is not born here. It is earned much earlier, long before assembly, long before calibration. It begins with trust in materials that will never be allowed to fail quietly. Nothing enters this factory casually. Materials are not welcomed by schedule. They are permitted by verification, sealed, controlled, isolated from urgency. Movement only follows confirmation. Speed is never rewarded. Delay is. Every unit is logged in isolation. Origin, grade, tolerance. Not assumed, proven. Acceptance is procedural, not emotional. Rejection is silent. No one argues with data. Before a material ever touches another, it is separated from everything unnecessary. Environment is controlled, pressure stabilized, humidity fixed, distance enforced. Even contact between materials is regulated. Stillness is intentional because movement without certainty creates weakness. Inspection reveals truth without commentary. Surfaces are examined beyond what human senses could judge. Dimensions are measured to limits that leave no room for opinion. Imperfections are not dramatic, they are simply removed from the path forward. Approved materials continue without acknowledgement, rejected ones disappear without blame. The system does not dwell on what failed, it advances with what complies. Certification is not a label, it is a permanent fact engraved into the material itself. Identity cannot be misplaced, history cannot be forgotten. Every tolerance is remembered by the system long after humans move on. Restricted processing follows, access narrows, rules tighten, handling becomes precise, measured, verified at every moment. No motion occurs without confirmation, no force exceeds calculation. Trust is replaced by monitoring. Environmental stability dominates everything. Temperature does not drift, pressure does not wander, nothing fluctuates by chance. Consistency is enforced relentlessly because inconsistency becomes failure later. By the time materials are staged for assembly, nothing about them is unknown. Every limit is defined, every behavior is documented, nothing is rushed forward. Preparation ends quietly. Only then does the factory allow the next step to exist.
What follows preparation is not construction, it is alignment. Assembly here is not about putting things together, it is about ensuring that nothing ever needs to be adjusted later. Every interface is treated as permanent. Every connection assumes it will be tested under conditions far worse than normal operation. Nothing is forced into place. Components meet only when their tolerances already agree. If alignment requires pressure, something is wrong. If correction is needed, the process stops. The system does not negotiate with error. Sequencing matters, not because it is efficient, but because order prevents stress from accumulating in the wrong places. Loads are introduced gradually. Balance is verified repeatedly. Each stage confirms the last before allowing the next to exist. Automation assists, but it does not decide. Machines execute movements with consistency. Logic governs permission. Sensors verify reality at every step. If reality disagrees with expectation, the process pauses without debate. No single component is treated as critical, because criticality is distributed. Each part carries only what it must. Responsibility is shared across the system, not concentrated. Strength comes from balance, not dominance. Human oversight remains present but restrained, not because skill is lacking, but because intervention introduces variability. Hands observe, systems act. Discipline replaces improvisation. Connections are locked, then verified again, then monitored under idle conditions long enough to reveal behavior patterns. Silence is studied, stability is confirmed. Only then does energy begin to flow. Once activation begins, nothing changes suddenly. Output increases slowly. Response is measured continuously. Heat, vibration, resistance, latency. All values rise within predicted envelopes, or the process halts. No exception exists for progress. Calibration does not chase perfection, it enforces predictability. The system is tuned to behave the same way every time, not to perform at its maximum once. Consistency is safer than brilliance. Subassemblies do not disappear once completed. They remain visible to the system. Status is tracked. Drift is measured. Deviation is caught before it becomes damage. Integration is deliberate. Independent systems are introduced to one another cautiously. Isolation remains possible even after connection. No relationship becomes irreversible without proof that separation will never be needed. Only after the system proves it can exist calmly does testing begin. Not gentle testing, not optimistic testing, testing designed to provoke failure. Stress is applied slowly at first, then unevenly. then in combinations that normal operation would never create. The system is not asked whether it works, it is challenged to break. Limits are approached, not crossed. The goal is not destruction, it is understanding. Behavior near thresholds reveals more truth than success at normal load. Heat builds, pressure increases, signals are delayed, redundancies are interrupted deliberately. The system responds without emotion. Paths reroute, loads redistribute, stability holds or the test ends. Failure is not dramatic here, it is precise. If something weakens, the system reports it instantly. No alarms scream, no urgency spreads. Data captures the moment calmly, exactly, permanently. Components that fail do not disappoint anyone. They have fulfilled their purpose. They revealed a limit before it mattered. They are replaced, redesigned, or removed without ceremony. Testing repeats, again and again, under conditions that overlap, conflict, and compound. Time is stretched, cycles extend beyond expectation. Fatigue is introduced intentionally. The system is never praised for passing. Passing is expected. What matters is behavior under pressure, how gracefully it degrades, how cleanly it isolates problems, how little it demands from human intervention. Only when stress no longer reveals surprises does confidence begin to form. Not confidence in perfection, confidence in response. Deployment does not feel like an ending, it feels like release. The system leaves the controlled environment not as a finished product, but as a stable presence ready to disappear into something larger. Installation is quiet. No adjustments, no tuning on site. What was proven remains unchanged. Integration happens without friction because uncertainty was removed earlier. Once active, the system does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. It blends into the background of daily life. Energy flows, signals move, support exists without being noticed. Monitoring continues, but unobtrusively. Data moves constantly. Trends are watched, not events. Maintenance is planned before wear becomes visible. Intervention happens before anyone senses a problem. This system does not chase efficiency in operation.